Well, I sure hope somebody picks up that phone, because I f***ing called it!
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm usually far more composed. I'm just a little bit absolutely livid.
You stupid.
Well, you know what time it is.
All right. Welcome everybody to this edition of our Sunday entertainment, repair, and news. So, start off with a few things. We'll get into the announcements, and then we will move forward and get into the project today. Today is going to be a little bit heavier of a project, guys. So we are definitely going to want to get everything going here shortly. I'm just double checking everything for you guys. So today we are starting off our super chats in if you're not a mod or a member of the channel. We do ask if you guys want to support us, please consider joining the members area where we are. Well, where we're going to offer a lot more stuff for you guys. So our goal here is to build this channel up by the end of the year. We want to bring you guys merch. We want to bring you guys a bunch of different stuff. In order for us to do that, we do need to build the channel and build our platform up. So how we plan on doing that is through our members area. So please consider joining members. If you can't afford to join, we've made entry very low. It's very easy to get in at a very low affordable rate per month. So if you guys want to be able to like and subscribe and you're on a phone, you're going to notice 3 dots in this upper corner right up here. Click those 3 dots and you're able to click the like button. That will help you guys and help us reach more people. So even if you can't afford to join now, it really does help when you can like and subscribe the video. So I have my producer in my ear, and my producer was asking where the music was. Guys, I got copyright stricken for the music that I had a few videos ago. I wound up having to clip it out. So what you guys will hear when I'm ready to go live with the stream is you're going to hear this sound effect.
Well, you know what time it is.
That will give you guys a chance to know that the stream is going to switch over. You guys will see the video shortly. Prior to that, I usually start a few minutes early, give people time to file in and get everything set up. But now that we've got pretty much everything going, guys, I will cover news at the end of this video today. Today, we are taking apart our Honda. This is a Honda Accord 03 with the 2.4 liter. We have a lot of things to do to this thing to really tune this car up and make it reliable. The people that are going to use this car are going to use this car on a daily basis to do work, meaning that the vehicle needs to run properly. If it's not running properly, what can happen is they'll get out, they'll try to do what they need to do with the vehicle, whether that's transport things or people or whatever the case might be. But if they don't have the vehicle reliable, it could break down in the middle of doing that project. And when you're using a vehicle to make money, pro tip for you guys. Sorry. Pro tip for you guys. If you're using a vehicle to make money, doing your tune-ups needs to happen because you don't want the simple things to cause the vehicle to break down when you're in the middle of working. You're using the vehicle to make money. So every second that the vehicle is down is a second that you're not making money. That is a huge pro tip for anyone who uses a vehicle to make money. It has to run. So when you watch the regular maintenance intervals, when you watch what you're doing with the vehicle and how much stress you're putting on it, you can then set up a maintenance schedule that helps you stay ahead of breakdowns. The worst thing that can happen with a vehicle that you're using to make money is to have it break down. So that's why we're doing what we're doing today. So I just want to say thank you guys for tuning in on this Sunday. We're about to start the project here in just a few seconds. I do want to give a shout out to all my mods. Mods, make sure you guys check in down below. If you're part of the mod squad, feel free to spam. The only time I allow spamming is when it's a wrench. Spam the wrenches in the chat. I can't do it while I'm on my computer. I can do it on my phone, but if you guys have any questions. If you're a mod, I will always read your questions when you're a mod. If you're not a mod and you want to become a mod, help provide content, help provide entertainment, help provide value to the show, and I will mod you up. My mods are really good about highlighting important questions that we should cover. But if you really want your question covered, make sure you super chat it in. Any dollar amount I read, any dollar amount over 10, and I give you a shout out and the sound effect. Now, you will hear that sound effect in between transitions as well, just so that you guys know. So that is the same sound effect that I use for my transitions and to give you guys shout outs. So let's go ahead and transition into the repair. So here is our Honda Accord. This has got the 2.4 liter in it. I have to assume nothing's been done to this thing. I have to assume that we're starting over from scratch. Meaning that if we're starting over from scratch, I need to tear this down and see where the problems are. By taking each piece apart layer by layer, I can then determine how far we need to go. I can tell you from preliminary looking already, we do have to go all the way down to the valve cover. The valve cover is leaking oil. We can smell oil shortly after the vehicle starts. Now, that problem may or may not be tied to a leaking valve cover. We will have a tool next week. We will have a tool next week that'll allow me to see down inside the cylinders, and I can tell you whether or not we have valve guide issues. If we have valve guide issues, then the repair has to go deeper. That is something I would have to talk to the customer about because that adds a lot more cost. We don't really want to break the budget on an 03 with some rust. Yes, it's got a little bit lower miles. The car is in pretty decent shape minus the rust, but there's been a lot of neglect to the engine of this vehicle. There's been a lot of maintenance items that have not been done. We are also going to do a brake inspection. We also have key fobs that we need to put batteries in. And we will have headlights that we're going to have to replace. You guys will see those headlights in just a little bit when I step out of the way. But these headlights are in really bad shape, guys. And they will have to be replaced. So. All right. Let me check a few things here. Let me check something. I need to check my stream health for a second, guys. Okay. All right, I'm just checking some stuff there. I noticed that my stream is really low. I'm not getting the reach right now, so I was checking to see if there was something wrong with the stream. But we are good. So we're going to tear into this repair, and as you guys come in, mods, you know what to do. My producer is also on scene here, so that will help the chats flow really good. So let's go ahead and get into it. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove two covers, and we're going to take our air cleaner apart. I want to get at that filter. I want to see what that filter looks like. Oftentimes, we can determine how much maintenance has been done to a car by how that filter looks. And the filter I'm talking about is the air filter. We're not going to put the air box back together because we are going to have to remove the throttle body and do a throttle body cleaning. Now, this throttle body cleaning is really important for a couple of reasons. Whenever you have a high idle situation or the vehicle doesn't seem to idle right, you can usually point to a dirty throttle body, especially in the older models, because the sensors really aren't in the way of causing problems. And as long as they haven't been taken apart or adjusted, And you'll see what I mean by adjusted when we get ours apart. There's an adjustment for the throttle position, meaning that if I take those screws apart, what can happen is it won't line up properly and your idle will be off. So anytime you have to change a throttle position sensor like that, you always have to mark the old sensor and then mark the new sensor when it goes in. You want to get as close to how those marks were without having problems with the idle, because you can still have idle issues by changing the sensor because it wasn't positioned right. And this only applies to old school model cars. This doesn't apply to stuff that's newer. The newer stuff, the throttle position is built into the drive-by-wire system. So there's nothing to adjust. So the old school gives you some adjustability where the new school stuff does not. All right. Some of this stuff out of the way. Bring everything in a little closer here. Okay. So the first thing we're going to start off with, we are obviously going to be pulling this battery. This battery is old. This battery does not want to hold a charge like it should. And that's just because of the age and the corrosion on the battery. We are going to clean up the battery post connections when we do that as well. So what I'll do is start off with a quarter drive ratchet, quarter drive extensions. We're doing two different size extensions. One will be a 4-inch, the other one is a 2-inch or 1.5. These are the extensions that we're going to use. And then we have some millimeter sockets. We're going to be using 8s and 10s for a lot of what we're doing, but we may get into a 13 later on. So I'm going to start by removing the tie down for the battery. Then I will remove the battery posts. So here's how this tie down works. And we're going to spray this down with some penetrating lube. But these hooks tie into the side. And then we tighten these down to hold the battery down. This is a battery hold down. This has to go back in when we put the new battery in. We cannot put the new battery in without putting this back in. The more that battery bounces around, the higher chance you're going to damage that new battery. For now, I'm just setting that off to the side because we don't really need it. Next, I'm going to use my 10. After I verify that it's the correct size. If it's not, we'll switch it out. Still using 10 millimeter. And this is on our battery posts. So here we will loosen up our battery posts. These battery posts are very finicky. And I'll show you why here in just a second. So these battery posts just pinch around the post. And what can happen is you'll get corrosion on them if you don't have insulators on the bottom. So when we put the new battery in, you will have insulators. But this one does not have insulators. Right now I'm taking wires off. And my red is extremely green and corroded. So that will need to be cleaned up really well. This is a cover. This cover is meant to insulate the battery in cold climates. It's kind of necessary, but also kind of not. Sometimes this can cause the batteries to overheat. In warm climates, you would never see those go back on because it does heat the battery up. So next we're going to pull the battery out. This is a small battery, it's not very big. So here's our small battery for this car. It's big enough to do what we need, and it does have pretty good cold cranking amps. Cold cranking is 500 out of a very small battery like this, but large lawnmowers will use a battery the same size. For now, we will set this off to the side because we do not need it yet. Pro tip for you guys. Batteries have core charges. If a battery has a core charge, do not throw that battery away or do not give it away because you do have to take the battery back to get that core charge. Core charges on batteries are going up. It doesn't matter if it's a normal lead-filled battery or if it's a lithium battery. All batteries for cars have core charges, so don't forget that. That's an important thing that will save you some money. So at some point, somebody's been in here and they've left pieces of the battery post. This is the kind of stuff that we're looking at when we look at the car. What has been done, what hasn't been done, the maintenance that's going on with it, how things are being taken care of. We have a battery hold down here that's kind of loose, so the only thing really holding it in is that battery tie down. So the box that the battery sits in moves around. And that's not really a good thing. So we don't need this because it won't stay on, so that we will toss. Next, we can either go for our air box, or we can go to start taking and getting into where our coil packs are. What I'm going to choose to do here is I'm going to go after the throttle body because I can switch up and go back to taking those covers off if I run into a snag. The first thing I'm doing is disconnecting my sensors and any hoses associated with this air box. So we have a bunch of air hoses here that are all for the PCV valve system and the recirculation. So what I'm doing is I'm double checking all of this stuff. And I want to make sure I get everything off of here before I proceed. Bring you guys in for a shot here in just a second once I get some stuff off in this air box. Next, I need a Phillips screwdriver. So check in live viewers. So guys, yeah, we've our news last week hit a little harder than what I was hoping. So kind of tells me that they got a little grumpy with my news section, guys. That's why my views are low today. I went a little too hard and I said some things that ticked them off. So they did not push my video. Okay, so the one that holds the air box on is a 5.5 millimeter. It's a very special socket, normally doesn't come in a kit. We normally have to buy this one separately at a parts store. But we will get in here, take this screw loose for the air box. this loosens up the snorkel for the airbox. Alright, so now we're gonna go after the bolts for that. That'll be a 10 millimeter again. Now, they did, I can tell somebody went in here at one point because they put some self-tappers in. That is the wrong thing to do. You do not run self-tappers. It should be an 8 millimeter, except for the self-tappers. Right. So for a lot of projects, you guys haven't seen me wear gloves, but I'm wearing gloves today because I'm dealing with a lot of corrosion. I'm dealing with residue of battery acid, and I'm going to be dealing with oil in just a little bit. So we don't want that stuff to soak into our skin, so we try to protect ourselves by wearing our gloves. These are just the black mechanics gloves that you can get at any parts store. Not that hard to get. And if they tear, we usually try to put new ones on. We don't like to, don't want to get that stuff into our skin, guys. We're removing a bunch of screws that hold the airbox on. That's what we're doing now. We will be doing news once we get done with the project. The news portion today, guys, is going to be kind of light though. We got a lot of work to do to this car, and I want to get this one done and back to the customer so that they can use it. But we do have a few weeks worth of work on this car. I'm going to get a longer extension. So I'm going to add a 6-inch extension onto the list of tools for today, guys. This helps us get in here and get this pulled out for the gearbox a lot easier. So everything is loose. We're just fighting to get it off of the neck there. We're taking the screw loose a little bit. Thank you guys for tuning in on this Sunday. Do this every Sunday at 1 p.m. Different topic every week. Just got done with our Audi project. Now we're getting into our Honda project. So we checked the airbox for any restriction, anything plugging it up. Once we've verified that, we'll just take a quick peek at any sensors that are on here. Make sure that they're in good shape. If they are, we'll set our airbox lid off to the side, and next we can look at our air filter. So this is a direct indication on how our maintenance has been done on this car. So if our maintenance is really bad, then we're obviously going to have some problems. But if our maintenance was done and done properly, this won't be super dirty. Now, this looks fairly clean, but we're going to test it. All right, so you've seen me do this before. Just double checking some stuff. You guys have seen me do this trick before. We use a flashlight. We put the flashlight behind and we look and see how much light comes through and if there's any dark spots. If there is no dark spots, then we will use the filter. So this one looks fairly good. This one isn't super bad. I can still see through the pleats. So we will go ahead and actually reuse this filter. Now, the only part that had me a little concerned is this gasket was not in the right place. So if I can get the gasket to go back in where it belongs, we can reuse this filter. Okay. So there is a trick. If you wish to reuse a filter and you see just a little bit of debris in between here, as you guys see, there's just a little bit of debris. Here's a trick that you can do. Don't do this a lot because if you do it too hard, you can damage the filter. But let me show you a little trick. Take your filter, use a flat, hard surface. Probably shouldn't be dealing on concrete. That's besides the point. Take this, lay it flat, and tap it. What this does is it knocks debris out of this filter. Now we don't have those chunks. We have a few of them, like a small one right there. But we don't have nearly the big debris from bugs. This tells us that our filter was doing what it was supposed to be doing. It's not super dirty. If the pleats were brown or dust colored, I wouldn't be putting this filter back in. I wouldn't even consider reusing this if it was damaged in any way, shape, or form. If the pleats look torn, replace. If they look dirty, replace. If there's a little bit of debris between the pleats, you can knock that stuff out by doing what I just did. You lay it perfectly flat and you tap it. By tapping it, you're knocking the debris out down towards the ground. So don't try to do it opposite and pound on it because you're just going to push it farther into the filter. It has to be debris side down to the ground. Tap it. You can clean these pleats out. This isn't something you're going to be able to do all the time though. So this is probably a once in a filter time that you can do it. Again, it all determines on how the pleats look. If they look dirty or look damaged, or if they're in bad shape, we just automatically replace. This only gets the little bit of debris out of the pleats to restore the airflow. But since this filter is good enough to reuse, we're now going to set this filter back into the airbox slot. there's any debris in there, I will grab that out right now. Got a little bit in here. Grab that out. And I'm gonna set the filter down in. We're not gonna put it back on because I have to get that throttle body out. Take a little break here, guys. Again, thank you guys for tuning in on this Sunday. We do this every Sunday at 1 p.m. Central. This week is going to be on the Honda project. I'm looking at my leg over on the side. I've got my phone set up so I can see the stream and pay attention to how many people are in the chat. I'd like to see if I could get it on the OBS though. I'm using OBS via computer and webcam. So this is how we're able to bring you guys high definition videos. I also worked on fixing my leg so I don't have such a long leg between when I say something and when you guys would chat in. We're working really hard this year, guys. So if you guys support us, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe. We really do appreciate it. Any mods that come in, please check in. Again, if you guys have not considered joining, please join the channel, become a member. We've made it very affordable, and we're trying to use that to launch an instructional course at some point in the future. It's going to be off in the distant future, but we do want to do an online training course through the members only area. So any members would get hands-on training. You would even be able to do a live stream with me and ask questions without being impeded by anything. So the more members we get in there, once we get, I want to say once we get about 1,000 members in there, what I'd like to do is start setting up these instructional courses. Membership is as cheap as $1.99 for a month. And it goes all the way up to, I want to say 40 some bucks or more, depending on the package. The higher up you go, you get discounts on merch, stuff like that. We're working on all this stuff for the future, guys. So again, we appreciate all the support, all the help. I know a lot of you will probably catch this back on replay now, just because YouTube is smashing my views from last week on the news. So I'll probably ease back on the news a little bit today, guys. I'm going to keep this one more about the project, but we will get into news at the end. I promise you guys news every week. I will give you guys something no matter what. But let's go ahead and let's start taking the covers off of this engine. Taking the covers off is going to give us a look behind the curtain. We're going to be able to see if there's a massive oil leak in that valve cover, what we need to do to fix it. But the first thing we got to do is get these covers off. There's two covers on this engine and they're both bolted on, not press pop clipped into place. The ones that are press pop, you can pull them up like they were on the Audi. Even the Kia has pop style. Kia's still sitting over there, guys. And I do have an announcement coming up for you guys at the end of this video. So you guys are gonna wanna stick around to the end. We will be doing some lineup changes, guys. So stick around and you guys will hear kind of where we're headed with this. All right, so let's get into this cover and what we need to do to get this off. Again, we have two covers. This looks like they have 8mm bolts on them. So I don't need my 5.5, I need my 8mm. And it's not an 8, it's a 10. Start just by popping them all loose for the two covers. One cover will have 4 of them, one will have 2. Okay, they're all popped loose. Now we can use our socket trick, guys. So, what is our socket trick? Socket trick is real simple. All we do is take our extension with our socket, we set it on there and we just spin them off. You can't do this unless they're completely loose. So, a little trick to help you guys out when you're working on your cars. Okay, first cover is off. And so I don't lose the screws, I'm gonna put them back on and finger tighten them down. I do wanna go finger tight snug so I don't lose them while I'm working on a project or accidentally bump them off. This valve cover is in really bad shape, guys. I'm gonna bring you in just a bit once I get this cover off, and I'll show you guys what we're doing. Okay, second cover is loose. Take it off now. So, second cover is off. Our second cover, guys, has bolts like this, and then it has nuts like these. There's two of these, two of these. You have to take these off and to make sure we can get the valve cover off. This little cover just hides the coil packs. We will need to change the coil packs, but we are not going to put them on in this video. The reason why is this valve cover needs to be replaced. Let me get you in and show you what this valve cover looks like. All right, guys, so here's our valve cover. And good for the old phone. So here's our valve cover, guys. And our valve cover has some clear signs of oil leakage, especially coming out of here, running down. We have corrosion on this valve cover where the paint is already peeling off. We have a whole new valve cover coming for this thing, guys. We will have to take apart everything attached to this valve cover. So this wire's got to come off, our coil pack's got to come out, our spark plugs, we're not going to pull those until we're ready to put the new ones in. We may do that today. Here's an important tip. We already know what kind of oil it takes. So, important pro tip. So here's what we got, guys. Next, we can go for our coil packs. We can see what holds those on and what we have to do to take them off. Looks like we have 10mm screws and we have this wire harness. I want to see how this wire harness is held in there. It's just loosely clipped in. It is. That's a good sign. That means we'll be able to take our coil packs out. Set this wire harness off to the side so that it's not in the way. Hose. Cruise control. It's not in a place where it should. Move that out of the way. So we have a couple of them that are on stud style. 10 millimeter deep socket is what we're going to need for these. The other ones you could use a 10 shallow, but I will just use my standard 10 millimeter socket for this. That will work just fine. We're going to start by taking those bolts used for those coil packs. Okay, my one coil pack was looser than it should have been. Red flag. Huge red flag. Whenever we have loose coil packs, we have to pay attention that maybe we had a short there. So that is something that we are going to want to pay attention to. And we will know more once we start getting this stuff apart. I'm going to start by pulling the bolts out before I lift any coil packs. The reason why is I want these in my hand and away from the engine so I don't accidentally drop them in the engine and have to go fishing for them. I'm going to start by taking these out, and we're going to keep these in a certain order because two of them have a stud style to it. I'm going to show you guys that in just a second. And we want to keep track and put these back in where they belong because these are holding the cover on as well. So here we go. There's these stud styles. These go on coils 2 and 4. Coils 1 and 3 just have a normal bolt. So we need to keep these in order and make sure that we put them back together in the right order. And YouTube hated me after what I did last week. I kind of figured this was coming, guys. I went really hard on them, and I showed you guys a big truth. Anyone catching this on replay, we're just going to go ahead and finish out this video today. I'm not going to try to end the stream and redo this, guys. It's not going to be worth it. I won't get... So, but guys, make sure you go back and check out that video. I really pushed hard. I really gave it to them. So you guys are going to want to check that out. If I get a chance, I would have my producer drop the link for that video down in the chat, or otherwise I can do it right before we go to news. But that video hit really hard, and I'm really proud of that video. Even though it's costing me today, it's worth it. Okay, so I organized my bolts over here on the floor, so I'm able to keep track of everything. Now we can start lifting these coils up one at a time and disconnect the wire on them. What I want to do is wiggle the coil. I want to twist the coil a little bit back and forth. What this does is make sure that the coil is loose before I try lifting them up out of the sockets. I'm not going to lift them up all the way because I do need to disconnect the wire. Here's what one of the coils looks like. Okay? This is a used coil. I would venture to say a severely used coil. Probably one of the originals. Meaning that we are going to want to put new coils in it in order to get this thing running right. And we can always tell just how long they've been in there by how much dust and dirt and debris is on the inside of the boot for this. Again, we notice that there's a bunch of stuff that hasn't been done to this car. The reason we're doing this tune-up for you guys here, so you guys can see when you buy a used car, what you have to go through to get it back and make sure it's 100% reliable, especially if you're going to use it for a business. So coil number 1 came out. Here was the socket for the electrical. There are 3 wires going to this, and there's a push clip right here that we have to push in and slide the connector off. I'm going to keep these in order I'm just going to do one at a time. That one. What I'm doing is I'm checking them to see if there's anything super, super bad or damaged so I can show you guys. Otherwise, I'm just going to pull these out because they're just used coils. There's nothing really special to them other than they don't put out the correct amount of spark that they were when they were brand new. I'll explain that in just a little bit when I get these all out. All right, so coils came out. There's one here that I'm going to show you guys. This is something to pay attention to. See, no one said hi to James, so I will say hi to you, James. When I pulled this coil, there were rub marks right where my finger is. That means this was rubbing and moving around inside the valve cover. It might not be anything important, but it's something to pay attention to. Also, we look down in here and we want to make sure that nothing's burnt, charred, or scored inside this boot. If it is, then it's arcing inside here and not getting the spark down to the spark plug like it's supposed to. Also, over time, these get really hard, meaning that these do get really stiff, really brittle, really hard. And what happens is this insulates the spark. So as the spark travels down, this insulates it from arcing out either on a valve cover or trying to arc out on the side of the spark plug where it's not supposed to. These will go bad over time. So sometimes we can see burn marks on these. I did not see any on our coils. Now, why do these coils go bad? These go bad because the amount of voltage that is carried through these under each spark session is very, very high, meaning that over time, the coils inside here, the windings that help produce the voltage and the spark to the spark plug, tend to wear these little windings out inside here. These are really sensitive. You don't want to be banging these around. You don't want to do any damage to these. So if you drop one, you might have to go buy another one. So be very careful with these not to damage these when you're putting the new ones in. But do know that these carry the load to the plug, meaning that if these don't have the right voltage, over time, they drop voltage, meaning that they don't continue putting out the same amount of voltage over time. They're supposed to. You're supposed to carry it through the life of the coil. Let's talk a little bit about what the life of these things are. About 100,000. You get about 100,000 miles on these, replace them. If you get 5 years out of them, replace them. The reason why is these do get weaker over time. So, little piece that you guys do need to know. All right, so we're down to coils out. Now I want to look down inside and see what's down inside where the spark plugs are. Before I decide if I'm going to pull plugs today and put the new ones in. Some of this is we're looking to see if there's oil getting down inside the spark plug area. If we're getting oil down inside there, that's a really, really bad sign. That means that our valve cover seal is gone completely bad, and that the valve cover seal is an important repair that we need to do. Okay, all is good. I do not see any oil down inside of it. Again, we see oil up here from where our mounting bolts are. I see oil seepage around the edge. So there is enough concern to where we do have to do this repair. And by the repair, I mean put a different valve cover on it. So I have a line here that's going to a power steering pump. Guys, I've done plenty of videos on power steering pumps, but I'm gonna go ahead and pull this line off right now. Some of my best reels are on power steering pumps and diagnosing the noise. That is something we will do with this vehicle once we've fully tuned it up. Is we will give it a run and make sure that everything's where it needs to be. 10mm bolt holds that power steering pump line on. It also holds down the connector for our harness. We have to move this harness because we're going to need to get in here to do the valve cover. So that harness will have to be out of the way anyway. I also have a vacuum hose. That's part of the PCV valve system, actually. We're going to pull that hose for that PCV. The reason I'm doing this now is so that I can slide this wire harness out of the way of the valve. Pulled my wire harness out of the way. I have a few more 10mm bolts. These go to breather lines that are connected to the intake that are going to power other things in the vehicle. We are not going to fully disconnect all of these vacuum lines. Instead, what we're going to do is remove anything attached to the valve cover so we can pull just the valve cover. We do not want to go deeper than the valve cover here, guys. So our goal is to get close to that valve cover without pulling it today. I'll explain all of that in just a second, guys. Yeah, all the paint is flaking off of that valve cover. All the hoses off. Give myself better access to everything. 2 10mm here. The rest is going to be 10mm that hold the valve cover on. And these are for the mounting bolts. 2, 4, 6. It's like 6 bolts hold the valve cover down with rubber grommets. I'll show you guys those rubber grommets when we go to do that repair. Once we go to replace the valve cover, I will do that. So, you might ask, why? Why are we not pulling the valve cover? We don't want to leave an engine open, ever. Ever, 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 ever. An engine open is an engine that could blow up. And here's the reason why. Every time you open an engine and you don't cover it, all it takes is something to fall down into that engine and cause damage to the engine, meaning we have to cover that engine back up. I don't have the valve cover today. I will have it by next week. We'll also have another tool that we're going to feature next week, which is kind of why I'm leaning on not pulling the spark plugs today either. Because if I pull the spark plugs, I'm going to have to pull them back out just to be able to do what I want to do in there. There's a reason why. Remember how I said we smell oil when the vehicle started? That oil smell is coming from somewhere. It could be coming from the valve cover, could be coming from bad valves. Tool that I'm going to feature next week you guys will see how we can see inside there and help determine the proper course for repair. Sometimes it's minor enough that we're not going to worry about it. It's not even using enough oil, so we won't be deeply concerned. Just a little bit on startup. Now, the more you drive it, though, the more you're going to wear those seals out and the more problems you're going to have. Now, the trick is you could put Lucas or some other additive in it that will thicken the oil. On old school engines, this works. On newer engines, it does not. Here's the reason why. On newer engines, when you put things like Lucas in it, they have systems now that shut down cylinders or adjust timing through a variable timing setup. That oil restricts flow to those important components, and it can destroy your engine. So, running things like Lucas in newer engines is extremely dangerous. I would not suggest it for anyone because the thickness and viscosity of that oil needs to be what the manufacturer says. Now, here's the thing. GM is changing that because of their recall. I'll get into that in the news in just a little bit, but just know that that's the reason why it's so important to follow manufacturer specifications. And if they decide to change it, it's because they noticed a problem. So, next that we got this down, what is left is we have a belt tensioner to do that we could do today. We also could remove this throttle body for cleaning. Now, if you have an electronic throttle body, we have cleaned them. Just know that cleaning doesn't guarantee success. We could do the repair, we could clean the throttle body, and we could still have a... The reason why is eventually the electronics go bad inside there. Throttle position sensors wear out inside the electronic throttle bodies. It's also a drive-by-wire system, meaning that if we get any carb cleaner or throttle body cleaner into them, do not use carb cleaner on a throttle body. If you use carb cleaner on a throttle body, you will remove a coating that's on there. If you remove that coating, you are going to have to replace the throttle body because it will not idle right. Pro tip for you guys. Next, once you guys clean these out, make sure that they're dry before you put them on. But if that liquid gets into the electrical components, it can do damage to the throttle body. This repair is necessary on vehicles that have near 100,000 miles because that carbon builds up inside there. The carbon comes from your PCV valve system. This is why people run oil catch cans. It's why they do. This is why we also vent some of our PCV valve systems so that they're not recirculating the garbage back into our engine. Why does this happen? Well, good old government EPA decided to make it this way. So, compare it like this. Let's say you need to breathe. You need to wear a gas mask because you got to have a filter. Say the air is not good for you. There's certain things that are bad for you. Now, picture this. You decide, I'm going to hook a vent hose from my backside to my mask. And every time I have airflow from my back, it comes to my front. That's what a PCV valve system is. That's exactly what it is. You're breathing in stuff that's already been processed, and you're breathing it right back in. That's what a PCV valve system does. Keeps it out of the atmosphere, puts it right back into the engine, so I can suck it back out and put it right back into the engine. This is why oil catch cans have really taken off, especially on vehicles that have high amounts of contamination inside the engine. Some newer engines that run turbos and superchargers contain more of these contaminants. It is what it is, guys. We can either choose to work with it or we can choose to ignore it. And if we choose to ignore it, it's going to cost us later on. That cost later on could be as simple as putting gaskets in it, taking our throttle body out and respraying it, or it could be even worse than that, which is we need to take and tear down our intake and clean out our whole intake system, like that one over there. Some vehicles will start consuming oil, and that's what our Kia has done. It's starting to consume oil because it's recirculated all that trash back into the top side of the engine. We tried putting PCV valve systems on it. It vents out so much that it adds a smell to the car. So I've switched everything back and it's still recirculating. I've gone to a thicker weight oil to avoid it getting sucked into the intake so easily. But we do need to look at what we're going to do for the future on that car. Something definitely needs to be done, and it's got to be done in a different way. More than likely, I'm going to either have to find an oil catch can for that car, or I'm going to have to build it. If I build one, you guys will see how you can build them. Also, I'll show you how to drain them after you've built them. Only problem is mounting them. They do need to be mounted in the vehicle, and they need to be mounted up above the valve cover. They can't be mounted below because they'll suck oil out of the valve cover, and it'll just fill the oil catch can with oil. Yes, we want to catch oil, but we also want to catch any of the moisture, debris, garbage that would have gotten filtered back through. We want to keep oil in the engine, but also catch whatever would have gone into the intake. So that being said, what is next? I'm looking here and seeing how I want to go about doing this tensioner. I'm going to grab the belt tensioner, guys. All right, so anytime you're going to do something like a belt tensioner, you should always look at how the mounting bolts are. How is it mounted in? Also, it's good to find out whether or not there is a pin that holds this whole assembly together. This one does not have a pin, meaning that when we take the belt loose, we'll be able to take our bolts out and we can swap these out without having to worry about the tensioner. Problem is when we go to put the belt back on it, we're going to have to pull the tension manually to get the belt up. So this does make doing this a little bit more difficult, but it's still doable. A lot of these will have marks on them. Get it to a spot. So a lot of these will have marks on them. These marks help us to determine where things need to be when we're putting the belt system back together. This gives you actually a range. If this is outside of this range, that tells you that the belt is bad. So sometimes your tensioners will give you tips that your belt is bad. Now, we are going to have to see what bolts we need to take out of this. We can look at the back side. We can see that there's probably a mounting bolt here. At least one here, here, and here. There might be one here. And there is a mounting bolt for our power steering pump here, meaning that we do need to take the power steering pump loose to pull this tensioner, but we got to take the belt off first. So let's grab the right size socket and ratchet and get that off. All right, our new one was a 15 mil, so I'm going to do 15 mil on the old one and see if it works. 15 is, or our old one is running a 14 millimeter. First step is to take the belt off, guys. You gotta get the belt off in order to start doing anything else. Get the tensioner off. It's really tight to get in here. The motor mount is a little bit in the way. Okay. I'm gonna try using a different tool, guys. So this is why we have so many tools. We're gonna try using this one. This is designed for removing the pressure off of a tensioner. It's got a nice long lever on it. We can put a socket on it. That is a 3/8 drive. And it's narrow enough for us to get down in there, press it on, and then we can actually move it. That's what this is for. Tools are a way of life in this industry. If we don't have tools, we really can't do all the things we want to do. So that's one really important thing when it comes to doing our repairs, is we do have to have a lot of different tools. You guys can see why we need that. Just look at the thickness difference. A lot easier to get this in there than it is to get this and the socket in. Okay, we're not going to take our belt out because we don't need to. But we do need to take this pump loose. And this pump looks like it has 13 millimeter, possibly 14. When you don't know what's in there, it's better to grab the whole rail than it is to run back and forth for one socket. Just grab the whole rail. That way you can keep trying until you get the right size. Once you get the right size, you can then not have to worry about it until you got to clean everything up and put everything away. Fine. We're going to go ahead and switch over. We're going to use some 3/8 drive extensions, 3/8 drive sockets. I'm going to guess a 13 millimeter. But if not, I'll let you guys know here shortly. And yeah, we're going to use that 3/8 drive ratchet that we were trying to use for the belt tension. Okay, now the 13. It actually kind of feels like 12 millimeter. And that's what it is. Okay, 12 millimeter on our 3/8 ratchet setup. We got 2 bolts that I know of that we have to take off. And these 2 hold the pump onto the engine. The reason we gotta do this is one of the bolts goes through the belt tensioner. That's the only reason we're taking power steering pump loose. This tensioner has to be replaced, guys. It's in really bad shape. I'll show you guys once I get it pulled out. Like I said, today was gonna be a heavy tear down day. We wanted to get down as far as we needed to go to be able to start putting things back on this as soon as possible. Again, I don't want this repair to extend any longer than it has to. They want to get this engine going. Yeah. Fudge. Okay. I'm gonna finish taking this out and I'm gonna show you guys something. I hate it when places do shoddy repairs. Okay, 2 bolts gets that pump loose. I'll show you guys in just a little bit what I'm doing here. Bring you guys in for a close up. And then I'll explain to you what I was saying about the shoddy repair here. Okay, we do not want to remove any lines. We're just moving the pump out of the way. All we're doing, we're just moving it out of the way, gain access, whatever bolts that we have to remove, pull our tension. Looks like there's gonna be 2 on the bottom side. Those look like they're gonna be 13 millimeters. Let's bring you guys in closer so you can see what's going on. Okay, so here's power steering pump. We took this out of the way, which is what we needed to do. This had to come out of the way. This is our belt tensioner. There's 2 bolts underneath, one down here and one here that we have to remove. We can take this tensioner out and we'll have access. What I was complaining about with the shoddy repair, guys, is this. This is an alternator, and a fairly new looking alternator too. Let me see if you guys can hear this noise. Give me ones in the chat if you guys heard that noise. Ones in the chat. Definitely not good for the camera, but ones in the chat if you guys heard that noise. So one of you guys heard that noise. So what that noise was the alternator. And it wasn't just a simple alternator issue. This is a common problem among alternators. This is why I railed so hard against Dodge and Ram when they went to their e-torque system. It's because the e-torque is an oversized alternator. What goes bad on alternators most of the time is the bearings that hold it all together. Because that alternator is making noise, I have to contact my customer and find out if they want to replace it. An alternator that squeaks is an alternator that's going to fail. We don't want to put a brand new battery in this car and have the alternator go out and take the new battery with it. What that does is we're basically throwing money and tossing it down the drain. We don't want to do that, ever. So when we notice a problem like this, we're better off stopping, contacting the customer, or if we're the customer, deciding, can we live without this vehicle until we can get the right parts? If we can't, we need to start calling around and figuring out where we can get the parts. Now, lucky for me, this vehicle isn't on the road, so I don't need to get this thing up and going this weekend. If I did, I would be pausing, finding the parts, and making a parts run. Parts runs slow you down if you don't tear everything apart first. So if you're going to do a big job like this, take everything apart that you want to take apart before you do that parts run. Only do a parts run if you have to get something before they close. Then you make the parts run so that you can get back and put it back together. Even if you have to stop where you're at on the take apart and retake things apart later on because you need the vehicle. Those are the options we have when we're driving and when we need our vehicles. And here's why newer technology is bad for this. Because when newer technology came into play, a simple programming or software issue could shut this car down, and it's got to go to the dealer. It's got to go to the dealer. It's going to cost you more money. This is something we try to avoid at all costs.
Bruh.
So, this is why I'm not going to be able to put the new tensioner back in. Take the old one out. I can also pull the alternator, but I can't pull or put the new tensioner back on. I was really hoping today that we could have went into starting to install some of these components, but it's going to have to be a different day. This alternator throws a wrench into the whole works. So getting the alternator out, we're going to have to do that. This alternator is located in a difficult spot. People that I've helped work on cars, I've told them the first thing you should look for when you're looking underneath the hood, number one, look for oil leaks or coolant leaks. Number one, look for leaks. Once there's no leaks on the vehicle that you're going to purchase, look and see how hard it is to get to the alternator. Because your alternator and your water pump are more than likely going to be the items that you're going to replace first. When those are the first items that you're going to have to replace, you want to make sure they're in an easy spot to service. When they're in a difficult spot to service or it requires an extensive process to get to them, you're not going to want to do that repair. Here's the other thing. that alternator looks fairly new. My customer bought this car. There's no warranty on it. Meaning now, even though there was a new alternator, they're going to have to put a new alternator on it. They're going to have to eat that cost, and then we can put our new tensioner on. Because our tensioner is bolted to our alternator, meaning we can't put a new alternator on there if we don't have one. We got to get it. Then we can start the reassembly process. But it's important to get this stuff apart when you're doing these big repairs. Get it all apart, know what you need, then you can start putting things back together. Make sure you organize bolts as you do it. So now that we know our direction that we're taking, we're going to move our power steering out of the way again, so we can gain access to the bolts on this tensioner. This will give us access to our alternator. Then we can start pulling the bolts for the alternator. Okay, there's 12 millimeter is what I have. Not sure that's the size. Tensioner bolts over. Find out here in just a second, guys. Yep, so those are 12 millimeters on the tensioner. I'm going to go ahead and take these two bolts loose. Using a couple of different extensions, guys, here. This is what we do. We swap out extensions as needed to get in there, get the bolts loose or out. Sometimes you need to put a little light in there so you can see where the bolts are. And you can work to get them loose. All right. Bolt 1 for the tensioner. I'm going to pull both of them, then we'll take a look at what's going on in there. I get to showcase another tool for you guys. Whenever you work on cars, always have magnets around. You will drop sockets, you will drop bolts. This is a fact. And if anyone tells you I've worked on a car and never dropped anything that I needed a magnet for, they're lying to you. Bolt number 2, there's one more hiding somewhere. So now that we've done this, I'm going to look at my new one. Okay, you got all the bolts except for the center one on the tensioner. And we need to figure out what that is. So, bolt I'm talking about is the center one here in the center of the tensioner where it pivots. See if I get lucky and it's another 12 millimeters. All right, everybody, here's our tensioner. Let's cover the bolts here real quick. So here's what we got. We got a big, long one. That's for our center. This is for the center bolt right here. So we are going to want to put these bolts in place on the new tensioner so we know exactly where they go. Because they're different lengths, we don't want to mix them up. We also have mounting points for our power steering. So these are separate bolts as well. We are going to want to put those with the pump. Or we can put them with the tensioner. If we put them with the tensioner, we want to thread them down so we don't accidentally lose them. That's the secret. Okay, so how can we tell if the tensioner is bad? If your tensioner bounces while the vehicle is idling, that means that the spring pressure is not being held tight. We can also tell by doing one other thing. When we spin this, we're listening for a certain noise. I'm going to put this right next to the camera so you guys can hear it. This is shot. This will wear out belts. This could seize while you're going down the road. Jay, good to have you in here on this Sunday. Just saw that you came in. See ya. But yes, when we hear a noise like this, we do not put this back in the car. And the reason why is we don't want to be stranded on the side of the road. When this seizes, it burns the belt up, shears the belt off, the belt gets wrapped around other components like a water pump, an alternator, an AC. These are way more expensive than this. This is cheap. It might cost you more in labor if you do not know how to replace it, but this part is a lot cheaper than the other parts that it could wreck. So we don't play around with this. We replace this. That being said, once we get this done, there won't be bearing noise to this engine because we're already covering two of the big components that make all the bearing noise while an engine runs, your belt tensioner and your alternator. Now, before I pull alternator, I am going to consult the customer, so I probably am going to hold off on replacing or pulling that alternator out in hand. We already talked about this belt tensioner. I knew this belt tensioner had to go because it wasn't done when they did the alternator. Big indication that these things are not being done properly, and it's a shoddy shop that's just putting an alternator on it because it doesn't charge. Oftentimes they could put a bad alternator in it, and that's exactly what happened to this thing. They bought a brand new alternator, they bought the cheapest one they could, and what happened, they bought a bad part. They didn't care because it charged the vehicle, but at the same time, the new customer is going to eat the cost when that thing fails. And that one will fail quickly with a bad bearing in it. So when we hear alternators that are making a noise similar to this when we turn them, it's time to replace not only this, but that as well. So, pro tip for you guys when you're in doing your serpentine belt system. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move my power steering pump out of the way because I'm looking at my mounting bolts for my alternator. And this one isn't too horrible to do. I can do this one pretty easily. I've got one connector, one wire, and 3 bolts to take apart. The only thing I'm going to fight is an AC line, and I'll show you guys that right now. So, our tensioner lived right in here. This is our power steering pump. Tensioner down in here, alternator right down here. This alternator has a bad bearing. It squeaks. Should not squeak. To take this out, we've got 3 bolts. We got one here, right where my finger is, 2 underneath. We have this wire here to take off, and then we have our main power supply to the battery right here that does need to come off. This alternator is not bad to do as long as the tensioner is out of the way. we're lucky that we're in a spot right now that this is easy to service. And this kind of does put us at a pause point unless we're going to pull our throttle body. That is kind of the last thing here to pull apart, guys. And then I could shift over to doing news for you guys. But I do need to come up with a plan and a course of direction before I start pulling that. We never want to just go in blind without having a plan of attack. That plan of attack can vary, and it can vary dramatically. Why can it vary? Well, there are some things that when you take them apart, you create a snowball effect. Meaning the deeper you dig, the more you find, the more the repair gets out of control. We don't want an out of control project, but I did pull my airbox off to give me access to the throttle body. There's two ways to do this throttle body cleaning. I could do it on the vehicle without disturbing the gaskets, or I can actually take it off, put a new gasket on it, clean it off properly, then reinstall it. The proper way is to remove it and put new gaskets on it. The easy way is just to spray it out, but the problem is all that's going to wash back down into the intake. Because the vehicle is going to be apart for a while, all that carbon is going to get lodged into the intake. Another thing we don't want. Plus, what this does by us taking this off, it gives us a look inside that intake to see how the PCV valve system is working. If it isn't working properly, or we've got a bad PCV valve, we will know once that throttle body comes off. We can then decide to take that repair in a different direction. So, all right. I'm going to take a look here, guys. See how I want to go about this. If there's coolant lines, I'm probably going to leave it on. Yes, and there is coolant lines, guys. So I'm going to look in there and see if there's a different way we can do this repair. A little bit of oil residue in there. It's not super bad. I think what I'm going to do, we're going to set up, guys. We're going to set up and we're going to do this repair without removing the throttle body. And here's my reasoning for this. If I remove this throttle body, I have coolant lines that I have to disconnect, meaning I have to drain my coolant, which means I'm going to need to relieve my coolant. I do not want to do that much into it, so I'm going to opt to wipe carbon off of the throttle body. So what we have is we have the butterfly. I'm opening the butterfly. I'm going to wipe underneath the butterfly. I'm going to wipe the outer lip that I can reach. I'm going to wipe that top side. If I think that I can't get it all by wiping it out with a blue shop towel, I will then use throttle body cleaner to spray a little bit down in there or spray a little bit on the rag to wipe away some of that deposit. What that'll do is buy us some time. Buy us some time to figure out which direction we want to go with the repair. Again, taking the coolant means we're going to drain the coolant. Draining the coolant adds more cost to the customer. And at this point, they need to be involved before I take that next step. This is a step that you can do. Just don't lose the paper towels down inside the throttle body. And what I'm doing is I'm just wiping to see how much comes off at first, how caked on it is. it wipes off pretty easy or if it's very troublesome. Okay. So we were able to wipe some, but it's not wiping very well. So we will do the old hat trick of just spraying it down in there. Open the blade with the lever. Yeah, I need a string on this. I shouldn't say string, a straw. So these things come with straws, guys. I do strongly suggest using the straws when you've got strong carbon buildup. Make sure you use the straw. Don't be looking down the nozzle. Make sure it's pointed off. You don't want to spray this stuff in your face. Okay, it's clipped in there. Okay, so now that I got a little bit in there, what I can do is take those blue shop towels again, and I can wipe some of that out of there. See how much more we can pull out now that it's got something in there that helps break that down. Now, their cruise control broke, guessing because it was laid over here. What happened was the last person who actually repaired this, for one, they didn't put this back in its holder, and they didn't clip the hose back on for the wire back on for the cruise control. So we'll have to look, see if it broke out. If it does, or if it did, I'm going to have to ask my customer if they want to put a new throttle body on it. So with a broken piece on the throttle body, at this point they're looking at putting a new throttle body on it. And I will probably look up what that would cost them before I even talk to them about it. But yeah, that's a huge problem. Huge problem. So that means we've already started digging into this repair. We found 2 items. One of them was supposed to be a brand new part that was supposed to be replaced. That was not. We found another one that somebody broke and never bothered fixing.
You stupid.
And now we've got way more parts that we're going to need. So with that, I'm going to pause the repair section here, guys. We've taken apart as far as I want to go down for today. There is one more item that I need to do, and I'm not going to do it today because I do need to get the car up and I need to find the O2 sensor on this car. O2 sensor has gone bad on this car. The reason this is such a big deal is because it does affect fuel mileage. It's bank one, sensor one, meaning it's the most important O2 sensor to relay information back to the computer for fuel mileage. Without having this one working right, guys, you will burn through fuel. So that one is really important to have the right O2 sensor in there. Make sure that they're working. How do we know that the O2 sensor was bad? Because when I scanned it, here's what I found. I found that the heating element of sensor 1, bank 1, which is the first O2 sensor, the heating element was what wasn't working in the sensor. If it would have been reading that the readings were high or low, but that the heating element was working, I would have questioned it a little bit deeper, saying maybe there's something wrong with the car. But since it's only the heating element of the sensor that's bad, that's all we need to replace. Pro tip for you guys when you're scanning those O2 sensors. If they have heating elements and the heating elements have failed, that's why you're replacing the sensor. If the sensor's not reading according to spec, you need to figure out why it's not reading to spec. Is it because you have a bad injector? Is it because you don't have proper spark? Are you not getting a complete burn inside the cylinder? That will throw all of your O2 sensor stuff off. So don't just rely on that setting alone. Only time you point directly to an O2 sensor is when it's the heating element of the sensor. That's how we know. So before I go any farther on this car, guys, I will pause and talk to my customer. I would say at this point for next week, we are going to have valve cover, we are going to have plugs, we are going to have coil. So those things are going to be coming up next. I don't want to pull the valve cover because I don't have the valve cover here to put on. I have the new gasket set with the new grommets. Those grommets are super important to replace them because it's the grommets that hold it down, not the bolts. That is a severe misconception that most people miss. They don't look at the grommets, they put it back on, they tighten it down, and then they ask, why is my valve cover still leaking? It's leaking because you didn't replace the grommets on the bolts that hold the valve cover down. Those grommets have to be replaced every single time you do a valve cover. If they're not, the new valve cover seal will leak. So, let's go ahead and transition into the news, guys. So, like I said, today was going to be a little bit longer on the teardown because we had a lot of stuff to take apart. We found some additional stuff that broke, but we do want to cover some news stuff for you guys because I promise you guys news every week. Jay, if you're still in here, you're going to want to know what's going on with California. And that may not come up in an article, but I will work to get you some information on what I do know. So, all right. So usually, guys, like I told you, articles like this are nothing but a distraction. They're to distract you from what is really going on. This whole Apple CarPlay thing is a joke because technology like this in cars is pointless. It really is. They're doing this to make it more convenient for younger people to use cars and connect into their car. Here comes the issue with that. We trade this technology for reliability every single time. When they put this technology in, they're spending money to do this. they won't make the cars as reliable because they're taking the money and putting it into trash like this. And that's the biggest thing I wanted to bring up with that. Scroll down here. They want to put brake lights on the front of a car. They've been doing studies to see whether or not it will help with accidents. Guys, they're doing this because they think that they found a way to keep people from doing this. The problem is, people that are going to run these red lights anyway, it doesn't matter if there's a brake light on the front of the car. Plus, according to DOT, that's not legal. You can't have red lights facing forward on a vehicle. Not legal at all. You can only have orange amber facing forward or clear lights forward. That's it. So putting a red light means they need to go back to the government and ask them to change the law. Maybe in more progressive states like California, they'll just do an executive order, which is what they've been doing. And Jay, this is the part that you're going to want to know. Your wonderful governor has decided to do an executive order to push the EV mandate. Meaning that after it went through all of the Senate stuff, and it was kicked out, and they said, you can't force laws on the entire country, because they were trying to push this through under the Biden administration. That got shot down through the Trump administration. And because it got shot down, they tried to push it through, and the Senate said, nope, not gonna happen. So when they got shot down, they decided, well, we'll just go around and we'll just do an executive order. Well, why not? The president can do it. Like I said, he's playing fast and loose with the rules, and you guys are having to pay for it in California. So it's going to be up to you to decide what direction you go with your politicians, but I'd be looking for somebody new. And hopefully this garbage that's going on in New York also goes away, because he is a very liberal, very progressive person. And he's only going to follow the California garbage. Again, usually my videos get slapped right about now because I'm going pretty hard on the news, but let's continue on. Okay, so I wanted to highlight this one right here that you guys see my red cursor on the screen. What does this mean? This means if you get a rental car and there's a single scratch on it, even if it's very microscopic, and you're renting that car from Hertz, they're going to run it through an AI scanner. They're going to find that minor scratch that you can barely see. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to charge you for it. So the only way to protect yourself from this is you want to buy the insurance that they offer. Because at least if you buy the insurance, they find that mysterious scratch. Guess what? You don't pay for it. The insurance company that you bought additional insurance from is going to pay that. What is this going to do? Hold on. Stop the show. Let's back this up. What is this going to do? This is going to drive the insurance rates up on all of the rental cars. What else is it going to do? It could very well jack up the insurance rates for everyone else driving cars. Why is that? Because all of these minor claims that Hertz is going to put through, the insurance companies are paying for. The insurance companies are going to recoup that cost by raising the rates on every other driver on the road. This is a bigger problem that most people are not going to call out. You guys will only hear this information here. You won't hear it anywhere else. All the other people that cover news stories in automotive world will not talk about this topic the way I just did. The reason why is they do not want to upset the algorithm and they do not want to upset the insurance companies. Why is that? Because many of them are getting sponsors. Those sponsors will pay for spots on their videos. I don't care. I would rather tell you the truth. The truth is that's exactly what is going to happen. Insurance rates are going to go up because of articles just like that. They're flat out telling you, we're going to raise your rates. And it doesn't matter if you own a vehicle, rent a vehicle, or lease a vehicle, your insurance rates are going to go up because of companies like this pulling stuff like this to basically get their vehicles fixed whenever there's a minor scratch or ding. Meaning that they're not going to put it against the customer who leased or rented that vehicle. Instead, they're going to put it against the insurance companies. Because now people are not going to be dumb enough to go ahead and rent a car without that insurance. And that's the truth. All right, so as far as this Mercedes AMG with its EV concept, either way, it's an EV to me. Not really concerned about it. There is a big push lately to create hypercars that have an EV system along with their combustion engines. All right. I'll get into it. So, GM took their car to Nuremberg. They ran it. And they found out that the EV portion of that car is absolutely worthless. So their additional horsepower that they thought that they were going to get, they're not getting. The reason they're not getting that horsepower is for one simple reason. Their main motor is overpowering the car to where the EV is useless.
Well, I sure hope somebody picks up that phone, because I f***ing called it!
That's what's going on. Their EV portion of that super or hypercar is absolutely worthless. Let's get into one more topic. They compared the Corvette to the McLaren. I wish I could have found this article because I would have loved to pull it up for you guys. They compared it. Guys, the Corvette weighs 1,000 pounds more than the McLaren. This is comparing an elephant to a cheetah. You can't do this in the hypercar world, and you can't be competitive. What in their right mind thought that they could go and compete in a hypercar status with a car that weighs 1,000 pounds more than a hypercar? This was a straight up L from the start. They were never going to reach hypercar status because they were already way too heavy. This was a waste of money on GM's part to try to push their EV agenda and to show that they could compete in a world stage in the hypercars. And it was straight up. Straight up. It was an L. This whole car, this whole Corvette, it was a straight up L. They had no chance. Zero chance of making hypercar status with a car that weighs 1,000 pounds more than its competitors. Insane. Absolutely insane, guys. Next, I want to get to this article right here where you guys see this nice red cursor crossing over this.
Stop the cap.
This is not true by any means. China has lied about their car sales. Their whole theory of being way ahead of the West is all BS. Their technology has dropped off on many of their cars. Many of their car brands are failing or about to go under. And here's the bigger issue. They have decided we're going to scam the system. How are they going to scam the system? They're going to take new cars, transfer them to a different country, and then resell them again in the US. Now they can say they sold that car twice. Guys, this is auto fraud is what it is. And it's happening from the dealer level. It's happening from the manufacturer level, not the dealer. It's happening from the manufacturer level. Manufacturers are taking the cars, transferring them to a different country, then turning around and reselling them again as used cars in the US. They're doing two things with that. Number one, they're selling cars at a cheaper price. Number two, they're able to show that they're selling more cars. Why is this important? Because every manufacturer strives for one thing: to say they sold the most cars in any given year. And the reason that they want to be that number one spot, because it gives them open markets in other areas to allow them to sell cars into more and different countries. They're able to sell more product if they're able to reach that coveted number one spot. It opens doors for them. It allows them to showcase that they're better than their competitors. Why would China want to do that? Simple. Money. They want to drive money to their business. They need to drive money to their business because their sales have been hurting. And maybe, just maybe, it's been hurting because they're doing stuff like this with brand new cars. Rather than selling new cars at decent prices, they're reselling new cars as used cars to be able to make more money. Throw some wrenches up in the chat if you guys like the content so far. Let's continue on. All right, this little article here about the Ford Explorer Tremor. Extra off-road capability for more exploring.
Stop the cap.
All that they did was lift it up slightly and add a bigger tire underneath it. That's all they've done with this. This doesn't make it more off-road capable. And the little bit that you gain, you might lose because you're also going to lose traction by going with a bigger rim. If you don't match the rims and tires for an off-road purpose, you lose off-road capability. Explorers are pretty much an on-road vehicle. They're used for police because they're able to use the back area to transport criminals. When it comes down to it, this little bit of added off-road might help a little bit with that. But people, if they're going to want to buy an off-road, they're going to go and buy one of two different kinds of cars. They're going to go buy the Raptor Ranger or the Raptor Bronco. The reason why is they're twice the capable off-road than what this thing could ever dream to be. Oh, this one here, the Nissan Armada.
Stop the cap.
This thing is an oversized SUV. Yeah, they're claiming big horsepower, heavyweight, full-size SUV. I'm not buying it, guys. I think this thing is going to be nothing but a tank, and it's going to get horrible fuel mileage. Oh, yeah, this one here, guys. So, apparently the road buckled, and what you guys see here is this car didn't notice it and decided to go for quite a nice little ride. This has been happening because the heat inside the road decks have been getting so hot that they're pushing the pavements and the plates together and the concrete together, and it's heaving them up because there isn't enough space as the temperature rises on the road deck to allow that to expand. So when it reaches a point, it pushes it up because the road has expanded too much. That's what's happening there. So when you're out driving around, pay attention to that.
You stupid.
Right here. Ford F-Series, doing it again. Back at it with the recalls, this time a brake failure. These brake failures are huge problems, guys. These will alert a lot of different transportation agencies, and I can guarantee you that's exactly what this one's doing right here. With this, they're basically saying that the F-Series trucks are trash. Now, hold on. And let's back this up. Why would they even bother putting out vehicles like this? Because they're trying to keep these big trucks off the road. Why are they trying to keep them off the road? We have to ask ourselves that. Well, here's the thing, is the more that people can haul, tow, and move things around, easier people can move around. Why is it important for this? Well, some of the big campers, you need trucks like this. Big trailers, you need trucks like this. Guys who work in construction need trucks like this. When you put out bad products like this, what you're doing is you're eliminating the amount of trucks that are going to be on the road, or how much you're selling these trucks because of the amount of recalls that you're having. Now, why is this important? Because if you're trying to drive a society away from physically laboring and demanding jobs, push them more into factory work, you're trying to push them away from these heavier trucks. Why again? To limit your movement. And that's what it's about. With failures like this is something they should have seen coming. This is something they should have handled a long time ago. And it should have never reached a massive recall status like it is now. This isn't the first time that Ford owners have been told not to drive vehicles. Let's back it up a little bit. If you guys haven't remembered, less than a few months ago, I did another news cycle about vehicles that Ford is telling you not to drive. What are those vehicles? Explorers, Rangers, and Mustangs. All of the 2000 era. Why? Airbag failures. And that's only a few months ago. That was 6-8 months ago that I said that. That I brought you guys that news cycle. These do not drive from Fords is going to cripple their sales for the rest of this year. Ford is in trouble. And Ford is not in a position that they can afford to keep having these kind of recalls. These recalls will straight up destroy the company. And the only way they're going to improve, they need to get this under control. Their CEO can sit there and bark all the orders he wants about how this is going to affect people's bonuses and how this is going to affect the production workers. It's not going to fix the problem. They're not the ones that are causing these failures. The engineers are. Engineers are the ones that are doing this. They need to go into their engineering department and straight up start axing people that are responsible for making these systems. And it wouldn't hurt them to take a step back and go with the older systems that worked, the ones that were reliable, the ones that were safe. We can't have heavy trucks like 1-tons flying around without having brakes. This is not safe to the public. It's not safe at all. Huge L in there on their side. I am not covering the Range Rover, so we're going to skip that. Oh. Mazda, you're going to create the next RX-7 rotary engine and you don't even have a car ready for it. You guys are something else. Maybe there's a reason why Mazda was about to fold a few years ago and why they're barely holding on. That's all I got to say about that particular article. This is some of the stuff we talked about last week with this flooded supercar that was found floating atop a toilet. Make of it what you will. We talked about the home EV charging setups that are illegal and will be banned soon because they're creating electrical fires and they don't want people charging inside their garage. If you can't put an EV in a garage and keep it warm in the wintertime, in the northern climates, the batteries are going to go to bed they're going to go to bed faster because you're exposing it to extreme elements. Same thing in warm climates. When you're charging it in a warm climate and you're putting temperature to that battery while charging it, you're going to shorten the life of that battery because you're actually overheating that battery. Huge, huge L. We talked about it last week, so I'm not going to push any further. All right, let's flip over to our next news cycle here. So apparently Mercedes and AMG have been playing around with hybrid 4-cylinder engines, and nobody wants them. We saw that coming. And anybody who did not see that coming has not been paying attention. This one right here. Let's go ahead and cover this here just for a second. I want to bring you back to a time, guys, of when a manufacturer built a car. When they built that car, they took shortcuts in the wiring harness. When they took shortcuts in the wiring harness, cars were notorious for starting on fire. Those fires did one thing. They created a situation where insurance companies would not insure them. This is what happens when they take race cars nowadays and make them into street cars. This is what it's basically saying. The article tells you right here. You don't even need to click into it because it's already telling you what's going on. This fire problem that they're having is because they took a race car and tried to make it a production car. We used to do this very well. This used to be something that we used to be able to say, here's the deal. We're going to take this car, we're going to test it on the track, then we'll build our cars. That has gone away, guys. It's gone so far away, it's not even funny. This is what has killed the motor industry. This is what's killed the sports car industry, the muscle car industry, everything. This is what's taken the love out of cars. I hate to hit that particular sound effect on this, but that is the reason that the love of cars is disappearing. Why younger generations are not getting involved in cars. Because we're not putting the passion back into them. We're not putting the love of cars back into the youth. When I was younger, I went out and worked on a car in the garage with my father. That isn't happening across America anymore. And I hate to say it, but these soy boy pussy dads don't even know how to touch wrenches because most of them don't get their hands dirty. I know I'm going hard here, but you guys got to wake up before we lose all chance of working on anything. And it all has to go to the dealer and we all get taken to the cleaners. When we can't work on our own stuff in our garage, we're opening ourselves up to getting taken by the companies that are going to control what we drive, how we drive, and how far we drive. Wake up. That's what this is going to happen. I've said it for years. And I said it's starting with the EVs. That's where the push is going to come from. It's going to start in the EV and it's going to go farther. It's going to come into AI driving us around. Wake up. Because that's what's coming. Again, I'm going a little harder than what I probably should, especially after last week, but I don't care. You guys got to hear this. You guys got to wake up to this fact. The more we trade technology for reliability, the more we give in to losing our freedom. The more we lose our autonomy to be able to move around, drive around, take vacations in our cars. Why do you think they want EVs to have a certain mileage range? It's because they want to keep you within that certain mileage range. And what most people don't know is there's a kill switch in most EVs. Guess what that kill switch is for? If they decide to institute martial law, they can shut down all the EVs with the flick of a switch. Wake up. This is why I won't touch EVs or a hybrid. The hybrids are getting to be worse than the EVs. Stop. In fact, EVs are getting worse than the hybrids are getting worse than the EVs. Because the hybrids are nothing but an EV using a gas engine to charge the battery. That's it. That's what these systems are. The new hybrids that I told you guys 3 years ago was going to come down the pipeline. They were going to take the gas engine to charge the battery. That gas engine's not attached to a driveline at all. It only powers a generator putting voltage into the battery. And it still can't fully charge the battery on its own, which is a huge L. You're going to do a system like this, then do it. Make the gas engine fully support the battery so you don't have to plug into the power grid. I told them that's the way to go. They're not going to listen to me because it is about control. It's about limiting what you can do with your car. And when they say they don't want you to move, guess what? You ain't moving. People forget a time back in 2020. I remember it because I lived in a state that it happened in. What happened? We had massive riots in a major city. And in order to restore order, they locked everyone down. And the worst part about it is it took almost 3 weeks for that to happen. And that was because of a bunch of stupid people playing political games during the worst time in our country. Right here. Let's get into this, shall we? So, Elon decides I'm going to go help the government save money. He has the vice president of Tesla running the company. And in that process, he not only destroyed his friendship with Elon, but he also destroyed his career opportunities. So after sales plummeted for the last 9 months or so, it's put them in a position that Elon's had to make major changes to Tesla. Not only that, but with the government backing the EV agenda, it's also put Elon in a predicament. Here's the thing. All right. Let's. When everyone says EVs come with a battery warranty, where do you think that money's coming from? Who do you think is paying the bill? Do you think Tesla's paying the bill if that battery goes bad before 8 years or possibly 10? You think they're paying for the battery if it happens under 100,000 miles? Nope.
Stop the cap.
They're not paying for that. You know who is? The taxpayers. I won't even say the government because the government is playing with our money. I said it. The government plays with our money. That's ours. And we got to start looking at it that way. They were using American tax dollars to pay for these EV battery replacements when they did fail. When do these batteries usually fail? When they're just outside the warranty. And if you own one, you lose. You lose. Because the minute you're outside that warranty, if you don't trade it off, you're SOL. Here's the bigger problem. You know what happens to all those used EVs? The values plummet on them so far they can't sell them. You don't want to buy a used EV. You don't know how long the battery's going to last. Big problem. I don't know how much more clear I can be with this stuff, guys. This is an L all the way around. And the more people buy into this, and I'm going to say this, say it once. States are the most responsible for this EV BS, the Democrat states. They're the ones pushing these EV agendas, and they believe it's good for the environment. It's not. I covered it last week. I went hard into the paint, which got me in trouble here, which is why my stream has been smoked today. But hopefully you guys will catch this back on replay. But it got smoked because I went hard on the news and they just decided they weren't going to push my video today. So that being said, we're going to move on to the next topics. Guys,
Well, I sure hope somebody picks up that phone because I f***ing called it!
why am I saying that right after we just looked at Motor Trend and saw the Ford? Why am I saying it? Plain and simple. Guys, they're forcing the bigger trucks off the road. There is something going on here, and we all need to wake up. This should be raising red flags to everyone. Same news article on the Mercedes. Oh, I want to cover this. This will be our last topic for today, guys. This will be the last news topic. So, why is the judge saying that they can't withhold the money for the EVs? This is taxpayer dollars, by the way. Your money. Your money. Because without the money, they can't put this system in. They can't do this. They can't build their infrastructure without taking money from the federal government. But guess what? These judges have now gotten slapped in the hand, saying that they're not allowed to override a president's decision. This just happened this past weekend. And this is really important for you guys. This is going to have a ripple effect among several different things. And we need to watch how this is going to proceed in the news cycle as this goes on, because the more these judges get in trouble for doing stunts like this, a judge can't dictate how the federal government's going to spend their money. They can't. It's not up to them. It's actually up to the House. The House decides how the money's spent. They're the ones who hold the purse. They can decide where the money goes and where it doesn't go. If they don't want it to go into something, they can stop putting money into it. They don't need the permission to do it. It's their job. And by a judge saying this, not only is he stopping a president from doing this, they're also trying to stop our own house from not putting money into something. This can't happen. Because the minute this does, it throws our whole political system out the window. It means that judges would have more power than the people that we elect to have power over us. These judges are appointed, not elected. This is a problem. These people are out of control. And not just a little out of control, I'm talking way out of control. Here's a little tip for you guys. There's 5 of these judges that are doing crap like this throughout the entire US. 5 judges doing BS like this are trying to screw with our country. Why? Because they think they can. They're on a power trip. They're not elected. So they think they can get away with this. We all need to be paying attention. We all need to be waking up to what our government's doing and pay attention. And the people that are in Washington that we have appointed, they need to swat these judges down hard. They need to make sure that they do not overstep their authority. They already have, but now they need to reel it back. And the newest reading from the Supreme Court started that process. This came down today. I was watching a news cycle where the Supreme Court deemed that the judges that are doing this stuff do not have the right to put in injunctions to stopping a president and his duty to the country. And this is all part of this. And I will give the gold star to anyone who can guess which state is the worst offender of this. See if you guys chat that in. Worst state for this. Where this judge is saying that they can't withhold federal funding for EV. Once you get into the article, it tells you the state. See if any of you guys get this here shortly. That's fine. California. And just so you guys know that I'm not speaking BS, I'm going to go into it. We're going to go right into the article. I don't even have to get 3 sentences in, and I already see the state. And what did they do? They slammed the representative, or the representative slammed it, saying that this move is unconstitutional. No, it's not unconstitutional. It's not unconstitutional. Because you're not allowed to play with the rest of this country's money. You have been using the US government to fund your pet projects in your state for far too long. And it's about time somebody slaps your hand. You guys are billions of dollars in debt, and you guys are still taking money from the federal government. And now you want to demand how we spend our money. Here, I'll give you another special sound effect just because you think that.
You stupid.
check for a few more news, and then I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, guys. So check to make sure I've covered all the topics I was after. I think I got the majority of them. Right here. It's news articles like this, guys, that we need to pay attention to. So they've been using these EV delivery trucks at a huge cost to the taxpayer money. They're now telling the USPS to scrap these trucks. The scrap process on these is very extensive. The batteries have to be pulled out. They have to be disassembled. The radioactive pieces have to be sent off for radioactive disposal. The rest of the truck needs to be crushed and processed, and you still have a bunch of waste. A bunch of foam and wiring and things like that that need to be pulled apart, separated. This is a very expensive, time-consuming process. And the reason that they're having to do this is they're finding out that these are not efficient. They're not able to do a full route with these, meaning that the battery charge does not last all day compared to the gas or dieseline engines that they were using in their delivery trucks. Guys.
Well, I sure hope somebody picks up that phone, because I f***ing called it!
And the amount of money that they're wasting, everyone should flat out be.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm usually far more composed. I'm just a little bit absolutely livid.
All right, so that's the end of the news cycle, guys. Check chats one last time. Had quite a few chats in here from Jay, from Aim High. A few random people checking in. That was cool. Guys, thank you guys for all your support. Thank you guys. I know this stream was a bit limited because of the topics from last week and some of the stuff that we're working on. We're going to continue to work on it and make these streams even better. We're going to work on our sound effects. We're going to work on our streaming. We're going to work on all of our processes and try to keep this as streamlined as possible. That being said, I'm still going to push news topics. I don't care what it does to the views. Guys, if I start going back now just for views, then guys, I sold out. And I will not sell out. I refuse to sell out. I will keep doing what I'm doing and keep pushing as hard as I possibly can. And at some point, we may have to make a decision, guys, that we may decide to set up our own site. We may have our own webpage that you guys can go to, subscribe to, and watch us over there. Because honestly, if I don't tell the truth, I can't live with myself in the morning. And that's what this is all about, is I need to put out a product that, honestly, guys, I want to be happy that you guys got this information. I want to share what I know and how I see things going, because I've been in the game long enough to know what's going on. I see the lies, I see the BS, and I'm able to decipher everything the way it should be. That being said, I also can see the pitfalls of the things coming at us. All of that might put us in a spot that YouTube may not be the place for us in the future. If they keep limiting my views and keep hurting my reach and not getting my videos out to where you guys can see them, then at some point we may have to make a break and do something completely different. That being said, if that happens, I will let you guys know far in advance. We will work through it. I'll work to get everything set up so that we're able to stream, either multi-stream in different locations so that our message gets out there, or we're going to push to try to open up other avenues that we can support this channel without having to rely on YouTube's monetization program, which is the main reason I'm here. If they can't work with me and get that up to where it needs to be in order for us to start making this a viable option for us, then we're going to explore other options. But that being said, for now, this is our home. This is what we're going to do. We're going to keep pushing whether they like it or not. And at some point, we'll make that decision in the future, but that decision is not today. Today, we tore down this car. We got to see a bunch of things that we knew were going to be a problem. We got to see a bunch of things that we kind of got surprised by. We're able to fix this car and we're able to put this back 100%, but I need the customer's permission before tearing it apart any farther. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to jump off and give them a call, find out what the plan of attack is, and I'll be back next week. Next week, we will be doing the valve cover. We will be doing the spark plugs. We'll be putting the coils in this thing. So that is one repair that's going to happen. If I get the alternator, we will more than likely do the alternator and put the serpentine belt system back together. Next week is going to be another heavy week of repairs. So the reason that these are getting so heavy is the customer needs this thing to make money. And in order to do that, I got to get it fixed. So we're going to keep pushing forward and we're going to keep making these videos for you guys. I just want to say thank you guys for all your support. Continue hitting the like button, the subscribe button, ringing that notification bell so you get notified when we go live, which is every Sunday at 1 p.m. Central. Make sure you guys check this out. If you guys are on a replay, make sure you guys check out last week's where I went hard on the news. I was going to do that. Actually, you know what? Before I end this stream, let me go ahead and do that. I want to drop this in here. See if I can drop this in here for you guys before I go. Checking out the stream, it's making sure that that's in good shape, which it is. Yeah, I would have to go all the way back out, guys. I'm not going to do that. I'd be sharing too much information. I don't want to do that. So, what I'll do is I'll try to link it down below in the chat in the replay and see if I can get it to connect that way. We'll go with that. So, guys, thank you. This has been an awesome Sunday video, and I'll see you guys next week. We'll keep attacking this car. So, see you guys. Have a good week, and keep turning those wrenches.